Gear Mondays, the greatest Metal Gear podcast ever.
I don't agree with you.
Releasing on Monday, every Monday.
How did you patch into my radio frequency?
Stinks in here. Bad.
Ladies, gearsmen, babies, and gentlethems, you're listening to Metal Gear Mondays, the...
One of these days, man, you're going to do it.
I need to just go back and listen to an old episode. The Metal Gear podcast covering all things Hideo Kojima, from top to bottom, left to right, inside and out, in pseudo-chronological order. 11 months later, this episode is hosted by me, Alessio Summerfield, and I am joined by Liliana Rai.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, this is a fun one.
Yeah.
Semi unscheduled, been scheduling for a while. Today we're speaking to Marty Rhone.
Marty Rhone,
who's fantastic. Lily,
yeah. the voice, the PCAP, the everything of Tarman, which I still find like really uncomfortable to say. But his name sure is Tarman. Yeah. So
yeah, it's I should have asked him about that. It feels feels like a slur.
It feels specifically like a slur you might hear in Australia, even.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah,
yes. But I'm also a little bummed out. I actually did not ask him about Tar Cat. Was Tar Cat mocap?
Yeah. That's a thing, and this is not like super. I think like if you've seen pictures or trailers or you've seen the Tar Cat, they're really, really on one about not explaining what the fuck that cat is, aren't they?
Yeah.
Just from what I've played so far, of like we haven't recorded our part 2 coverage yet. That's going to be on the next episode, but they're really just like in on not explaining the fucking cat.
No, 100%.
I'm just.
But yeah, no, this is a fantastic interview. Marty was very kind to give us some of his time, albeit time that was 14 hours ahead of our time. I'm not faulting Marty for that, but yeah, no, we're really excited to bring you this interview. Obviously, at the top of the episode, we want to cover all of our typical things. So this episode is brought to you by patron Jess Davis.
Whoop, whoop.
Very recent patron, so thank you so much, Jess. If you want to be cool like Jess, you can give us $10 a month at patreon.com/Metal Gear Mondays. $10, you get a shout out. You also get video versions of all the podcasts, and you get video versions of our Patreon exclusive podcast, Patriot Club. $5 a month, you get the Patriot Club audio only, and then $1 a month, you get access to the Discord. All tiers get access to all of our pre-2025 Patreon material. So that's 65 hours of Patriot Club.
Plus.
Yeah. Plus, I totally forgot. We have a bunch of Let's Plays on there still.
Yeah, we do.
There's like Metal Gear Solid
just
1 Let's Plays. There's there's all kinds of other stuff too. So some fun posts, weird updates, silly videos, all that jazz. So, but yeah, consider. We don't want to belabor the point too much. But yes, thank you, Jess Davis. And then outside of that, Lily, do you want to give them the spiel on the contact email?
Yeah, I'll give them the spiel. We are taking listener responses as ever, as we always have. We very much are looking forward to hearing from you about, Death Stranding 2, which is the topical thing, but just general Kojima, Metal Gear stuff. We'll talk about it at some point. And we've gotten some really great responses from a couple people already that we're going to be reading on episodes in the future. I posted a little social media video a couple of days ago, but we're not doing listener response episodes anymore. We're just kind of like reading them as they get them. So there's no longer like deadlines for your stuff anymore. The thing that I said in that video was that like we don't take sponsors. We don't have, business ads or anything that we have to read in the middle of the show. That's basically what we want to do with your responses, because you are our sponsor. So we stay afloat. We do this because of the listeners, and we'd like to keep it that way. And your responses will help us kind of keep engaged, and we want that. So send all of your contact stuff, all of your emails, all of your thoughts and opinions and well wishes to contact at metalgearmondays.com. We see responses on social media and on in the Discord and other places like that, but like to have everything like really concentrated in one place helps us a lot so we don't lose stuff. So send all of your stuff to contact at metalgearmondays.com. We'll read it on the show.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, and if you've got anything you want us to discuss, I think those are the most fun emails. Like, no offense, like anybody, and don't get me wrong, like I'm incredibly grateful. These types of messages, quite literally, sometimes put a tear in my eye. But it's great when you send us emails that are like, "Hey, thank you so much for the show. You guys are great. The show got me through X, Y, and Z." Like, by all means, like if you want to send that stuff,
we'll take those,
please do. But that being said, we are going to try to keep from patting ourselves on the back with listener responses. And mostly we would just kind of love to have some discussion topics and be able to like answer questions. So if you do want to send a nice affirmation, that's great. Just try to like bundle it with a question. We've already gotten some really good ones too. So we've gotten some messages from our favorite postal worker, Matt Sizemore.
Matt Sizemore.
And we've gotten some really interesting scientific emails recently. So anyway, very exciting stuff. You'll hear it on the next mainline episode, number 221. But I don't want to necessarily delay our wonderful interview subject that much more.
Yeah. Due to some last minute stuff that came up, I wasn't able to join in. But Alessio did a wonderful job tackling a solo interview. I think the only other solo interview we've done was my interview with Paul.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's cool to have another one on there. So Alessio did a great job. It was a really great talk. Marty is a sweetheart. Really good. I guess the only miss is the hey, does Tarman make you uncomfortable? Quite frankly.
Yeah. I do want to just really quickly give a little bit of a bio lead in.
Primer.
Di, his manager, agent, handler. I'm not quite sure what her title was.
I think he said agent. He said agent in the business.
Got it. In the episode. Die roll, which is still very funny.
Yeah, it's very good. That's very good.
She sent me a wonderful bio, which I mentioned in the interview. But I just wanted to read some of it. Essentially, what you guys might, if you're Australian, what you might know Marty from the most is his music career. He actually had several huge singles that he talks about in the 70s. I would say they even went so far as my Italian mother, who also heard them at some point in her youth. But yeah, so that is what you'll more than likely know him from if you're an Aussie. But for everyone else, he's been in film, television, theater, obviously Death Stranding 2. And yeah, he's done everything from co-star in some stuff like Preacher, which is huge, to doing such things as performing at London's West End for the British royal family. He's performed for Princess Grace of Monaco, the late King Hussein from Jordan. He's had an incredibly illustrious career. And
he'll talk about this, what he did, the King and I, with Yul Brynner. Multiple times, which is crazy.
Yeah, which is absolutely insane. So Marty mentions that he's like at the twilight of his career, but I refuse to say that. I think he is hitting a wonderful new stride, new era of his career.
I'm hoping this kind of feels like he's done some other stuff, like you talk about how he's like he did some stuff in Street Fighter 6 and some other things, which is of great interest to you, and shout out Steve out there listening. I'm hoping this kind of opens up a door for him into like the world of voiceover and of video games and stuff like that, because he's got a fantastic voice.
He did a tremendous job. I know he made a joke. He makes a joke about being compared to David Attenborough for one of his of his auditions, but like I get that vibe, but like in the best possible way.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not inaccurate. Positive parentheses complimentary.
Yeah. I could listen to Marty audio narrate an ebook. So I'm hoping if he wants to do an audiobook, I will be there.
Hey.
But also shout out, speaking of Steve, I should be a better friend and remember the date, but I know it's soon, if not already. Congratulations on getting married, Steve.
Yeah, Steve, congrats.
So yeah, Steve and Justine in Newfoundland. How do you
Newfoundland.
say it? Newfoundland.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
Newfies.
congrats, y'all. Mazel tov.
Mazel.
Anyway,
neither of us are Jewish.
Yeah, well, I am a quarter.
Well, yeah, that's fair,
German
that's
Jew,
true.
but
I'm like 2% Ashkenazi.
Yeah.
It's fine.
As Deborah would say, I don't have to be Italian to like to eat Italian food.
That's true. That's very true. That's extremely true.
Anyway, doi tashimashite, and enjoy the show. Cheers, y'all. Marty, thank you so much for being on the show with me. It's an absolute pleasure. I can safely say we've never interviewed pop royalty on this program before, so thank you for joining me.
I've never felt so flattered.
Oh man, so first and foremost, how do you pronounce her name? Is it Die Roll or D?
No, it's Die. It's Die Roll. Yeah, short for Diane.
Die Roll.
Yeah,
I love it. It's like rolling a dice. She sent over a lovely bio and a lot of information, and so we'll be handling the wonderful introduction before jumping straight into the interview. So no need to reintroduce yourself. But for that being said, we have a lot of listeners that are, I would say, probably 30 and under, mid 30s, who might not be familiar with your work. I took a deep dive this past week and a half and listened to a lot of your work and loved it. But could you maybe let our listeners know what they may have heard you in?
That's a tough one, because Death Stranding 2 is probably the biggest, widest spread international exposure I've had. If people are living in the UK, their parents would have probably seen me in The King and I with Yul Brynner at the London Palladium. Down here in Australia, they might have seen me about a decade ago with Lou Diamond Phillips playing the King in The King and I. And in the US, I had guest appearances in Preacher and Bull as an actor. I recorded my first US country album in America at Cactus Studios in the Beverly Hills. The producer was David J. Holman, who sadly passed away just a couple of months ago. But he was responsible for the Grease and Xanadu albums and worked extensively with Olivia Newton-John. And I was in America trying to further my acting career. And he happened to see a video to a song I recorded called Graceland on the Line. And he asked to have a meeting with me. So I went up and met with him at his studio. And at the conclusion of that meeting, he said, "I'd like to produce your first US album." And I said, "Oh, that's very kind of you, David, but look, I don't have the money. You're such an esteemed producer. You've produced those albums and you've produced Gwen Stefani. I don't have the money." He said, "No, it's on me. I'll produce it and I'll cover it with my studio."
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
So three number one
wonderful.
independent hits later, people will probably, if they listen to sort of more independent country radio in the US, they would probably hear tracks from the Jealous of the Sky album.
Okay. No, that's awesome. I was unaware of that record, and I would love to hear it now. So I appreciate you letting me know. One thing that I find interesting is you have this Street Fighter 6 credit. Can you tell me about this? Is this real? Are you a narrator for Street Fighter 6? Is that an actual credit?
Yeah, it is. I was contacted by the makers of Street Fighter 6, which is actually the animated version. It's not a game version. It's the animated version. And they asked me would I do some narration for it.
Very cool. Very cool.
And I said, "What sort of voice?" They said, "Well, we like the tone of your voice, and we'd like you to put on this deep voice that we heard in one of your demo reels." And I put on this deep voice with a sort of a British accent. And this person online came back and said, I didn't know you guys got David Attenborough to
That's
do the
very good.
voiceover for Street Fighter. So I was flattered. I thought
Yeah.
to be in the same sort of room as David Attenborough is fine with me.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean that's very very high praise. I will say this. And I'm glad to give a little context. Our podcast covers the works of Hideo Kojima in a very like book club sort of fashion. So our listeners will kind of play along. We'll have discussions. We'll interview guests from the games, stuff like that. We've been going on for, I think this episode with you right now will be episode 220, and I think we've been running for 8 years, something like
Wow.
that. But all that to say, the show itself will begin coverage of your portion of the game 4 days from now. So you are coming at the perfect moment. And I just spent, I don't know, I'd say the last 2 days hearing your performances in Death Stranding 2, and I just have to say it's your vocal performance is fantastic. Like you sound very very good.
Thank you. I've got
So
a confession to make. I was sent this by the producers, and I wouldn't have a clue how to work
yeah.
it. I'm so
Hey, you're not the
frustrated.
first. You're
And
not the
both
first.
my sons live in the US, and I'm going to send them one of them a copy. But I said, guys, if only you could be here, so I could actually sort of dissect my performance. And
Yeah.
they said, Dad, sometimes it's a good idea not to do that.
That's fair. That's also fair. Yeah, it's strange because I would assume, obviously being in the theater, you're getting audience reactions immediately, right? Being a stage performer of any kind, you're playing music, you're doing whatever. It's very one-to-one, instant gratification. I've worked in film and television for about 13 years, and so I understand that instant gratification does not come with film and television. This must be very strange for you though, because I don't know. I feel that the gratification for this role is probably quite delayed and may continue to be delayed for you. Has anybody talked to you about it since the release? Have you seen any
Well, yeah,
reactions?
you're very perceptive. Perceptive is probably not the right word, but I've been somewhat frustrated by the not the reluctance, but the slowness of the media, the general media,
Yeah.
and even the entertainment media to latch onto it here, because gaming is in its infancy in Australia. There are
Yeah.
gamers here. There are a lot of gamers here, and there are a lot of people now making games, but it's still in its infancy. So when you put out as my publicist Di put out a media release, everybody sorts of has this sort of blank look on their faces and say, well, what is this all about? Whereas overseas, especially like in the US or UK and Japan, they would go immediately, would know what you're referring to.
100%.
So in this country, particularly, you have to overcome that sort of it's not a barrier, but it's a sort of an ignorance, I guess, of just how big gaming is.
Hmm.
And when I explain to people that games make more money than films, they sort of went,
Oh,
"What? What
100%.
about
Yeah.
Titanic and all this?" I said, "Forget about Titanic. Think about Grand Theft Auto."
Yeah, exactly.
Which got to I think $1 billion in the first few months or something. Where it took
Yeah, I think it
Titanic,
was
I think,
quicker than that. I think it was like
yeah,
a week. Yeah, it's
yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
So that's what I've struck here. So you're right on the ball.
I will say this though, it's like I think it's incredibly cool that someone of your vintage, I will say, is open and is like, sign me up. Let's do it. Let's jump in. Because I think a lot of people, to your point, kind of like turn up their nose and they're like, oh, what is this? To bring it back to Grand Theft Auto, I think most famously, Ray Liotta did one of the games very early on. Thought the whole thing was a joke. Did a pretty ho hum performance, in his opinion. Was apparently awful to work with, and then years later was suddenly like, oh my god, I wish I would have known. I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. So I don't know. I think I don't know. It's very big of you, I think, to do
Well,
something fun and different.
Well, in the words of my manager, she said to me, I actually mentioned to her, I said, gee, the media here, they're so slow to react. And she said, don't worry. She said, gamers are a totally different. She said, they'll be with you and on about you for the next few years. She said it's like a slow build and it gradually builds over time.
Yeah,
She said,
yeah,
it's not like a movie that is out for 2 weeks and then it goes to streaming. She said,
yeah,
set yourself for a very different ride.
yeah. Well, and it's interesting too that you mentioned it not being like a movie because so many of the other actors that are in Death Stranding, even just talking to their agents and their managers while we've been getting interviews set up, there's been a lot of talk of like, oh, well, Mads Mikkelsen was in the first game, and I remember we missed his window, and his agent said to us, oh, Mads is no longer doing press for that. And it was just so strange to hear. Like I hear it in film and TV all the time, but in games it was such an interesting like, what do you mean you're not doing press for it anymore? It's still out. People are still talking about it. It's still huge. But yeah, it's just a very, to your point, it's a very different beast.
Yeah.
Have you seen any of the critical reception or anything for the game?
Yeah, I've had some really nice feedback from gamers, obviously on Instagram on my Instagram site. I opened a Pandora's box with one of them, and he commented nicely, so I responded back to him, and he asked me, how did you approach sort of playing Tarman?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
just gave him sort of one sentence, and then the next day I woke up and there were pages and pages of this critique and what he got out of it and what he thought of the whole thing. But it's a whole new world for me.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
very exciting. I just find it exciting, and I sometimes have a bit of sort of a smile on my face, and I feel a bit bemused by the reaction of some in our profession. Um, People often say to me, what's it like being, peppered by media and that, and there's a camera always in your face and that. I said, well, we strive for years and years and years to actually create a career for ourselves. And then when it comes, a lot of us don't embrace it,
Right.
but I do. I just love the industry I'm in. And if this is part of it, bring it on.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I think that's also a really healthy way to view it too, because I don't know, it's strange. To your point, you work all these years, you put in all this time, all this blood, sweat, tears, and then to be, I don't
I don't
know,
want to be
to be like
seen. I want to be
annoyed.
seen. You're suddenly
Yeah,
famous. I don't want to be seen.
yeah. Like, what do you what? Speaking of not being seen, actually, I do have a question for you. Uh, I I assume you're familiar with George Miller, right? The Australian director.
I am, yes.
How weird is it that your voice is coming out of his mouth?
It's very weird. I cracked a joke the other day. I was doing an interview, and they say, "Yeah, so what actually is the synergy, the crossover?" And I said, "Well, it's my acting, it's my voice, it's my motion capture, it's just about everything, but it's George's face." And I said, "I don't understand it because he's so ugly and I'm so pretty." To coin a phrase of a famous boxer.
That's very good.
Um, but I wrote a letter to George about 4 decades ago. I had an idea for a film, and at the time he had just done, I think, Mad Max 2, and
Mm.
I had an idea for a film, and I wrote him and gave him a sort of synopsis on it, and he responded. He actually sent me back almost a 4-page letter explaining
Oh wow.
why I would never get the film up
At least he
because
was honest.
it was a horror supernatural type of thing, but at the same time, Poltergeist had
Got
just
it.
been released, and what he said was very valid. What he said was, with Poltergeist now and the way that those genre is going, he said you'll never get the budget in Australia to do credit to your film. He said I like the story, I
Mm.
love, it, especially as it's true. He said, but you'll never get the budget for it in Australia because look at Poltergeist,
Yeah,
millions
yeah.
and millions. But yeah, no, I'm very aware of George.
Nice. Well, no, I'm happy to hear it because I I was having a thought actually before this interview where I was like, how strange is it that this Japanese man convinced a bunch of celebrities to let him scan their bodies so that he can then insert whatever voice or motion capture he wants and just puppet them around. It was just a very strange. So yeah, I guess how were you approached for that? I mean, did somebody tell you you were going to be voicing George Miller's body, or did they just say this is the character and you found out later? What was that chain of events?
I had been living in Los Angeles for a number of years, from 2017 to 2020, and I was in LA, and I got a phone call from my son, and he said, "Dad," he said, "when are you going back to Australia?" I said, "Well, I'm here for a few more months before I have to head back." He said, I would leave now," and I said, "What? Why?" He said, "COVID is about to hit
Yeah.
big time." And it's funny because I'd just done my shopping at Trader Joe's, which was across the road, and I could see Trader Joe's from my balcony, and it was quiet. The street was quiet.
Oh, geez.
The next day, I got up, and there were queues around the corner, and
Oh,
I walked over to Trader Joe's, and the shop had been cleaned out. And it really underscored what my son had said. He said, "Dad," he said, "get on the plane now." He said, "because you may not be able to fly out in the next
yeah,
week."
yeah.
Anyway, to cut to the chase of your question, I'd been back in Australia for about 18 months. And I think it was in September of 2021. I got an email to say, "We'd like you to audition for a voiceover."
Mhm.
And so I did this audition, and it was with an American accent, and I was pretending to be a fighter pilot. I was actually in this chair pretending to be a fighter pilot with the gear stick,
Nice.
and I did that, and I heard nothing for about 3 months. Come January of 2022, and I get another email saying, "We'd like you to audition for a video game," and they said, "We'd like you to do a Zoom audition." And I said, where do you want me to audition? Because are you aware that I'm back in Australia?" And they said, "Yeah, we are. Can you do it in your own home?" And I
Yeah,
thought,
yeah.
"What's the scenario?" They said, "You're on the deck of a ship in the middle of a storm." And this, of course, obviously was the DV Magellan.
Yeah.
So we've got double beds in every room. So I picked the room with the largest double bed in it. And I pretended that was the deck of a ship, and I was leaping around, bouncing off the bed and onto the floor a number of times and crawling back up, but it was perfect in context with the
That's
scene.
amazing.
And I got the gig. And then I got another email from my manager saying they want you in LA in 2 weeks' time, and the whole roller coaster started. And I made 8 trips to the US about 2 weeks ago, just doing motion capture and meeting everyone and working on the game. It was a wild
That's
ride.
crazy. Oh, I'm sure. Was it your first time doing motion capture?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It,
How
it
did you
was,
find yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, yeah, look, I found it fascinating. The only downside was the weight of the helmet, the weight of the headpiece with the camera out the front and the microphone. It gets very heavy. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
could only take it for a couple of hours at a time, and then they would have to give you a rest and
Got it.
take the helmet off and that. But when I first walked into the studio, I was expecting this huge set, with things everywhere, and it was virtually a bare room, and all it had in the middle was sort of like iron pipes, chairs made of iron pipes, and
Mhm.
risers and trestles, and that was it. And here we all were in this skin tight lycra. And I'd never seen anything like it in my life. We've got all these dots all over. It's like black measles,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and then we had to pretend. It was literally pretend. And as you know, in the game, I lose part of my body, and so
Right.
therefore I had to pretend all the time to put this prosthesis on every time, just
Oh,
pretending.
interesting.
Yeah, but when you see the final result, you go, "My goodness, wow, this is something else?" No, it was
100%.
yeah,
Yeah,
mind
it looks
blowing.
very organic. Yeah, it's interesting too. So this has come up a couple of times. I don't know if you ended up. I'm curious, and I'll ask you about it. But on all of his other projects, on Hideo Kojima's other works, most of the time it's sort of this traditional. Everyone's kind of siloed off. They do their vocal recording separate. Not a ton of interaction. Usually, voice directors kind of in between him and them. But it seems like we've talked to Darren Jacobs, who plays Heartman.
Yeah,
We've spoken with Deborah Wilson, who plays Doctor. We've spoken with quite a few other folks, and Tommy Earl Jenkins. And the what we've sort of pieced together is, I guess, everybody was there. So like you were you were in the room with your castmates, it sounds
Yeah, I
like.
was. It was like an ensemble, and we became quite close
That's
because we were
awesome.
working with them on a day to day basis. And of course, for me, having to travel 16 hours to go to work,
Yeah.
uh, and then having to have a day or two to recover, it was extra special for me because we all got on so well.
Nice.
And it was just such a fun ride because they became friends, and we still now communicate on social media. And it was very much an ensemble piece.
That's very cool. It's got to also be better for the performances, I'd imagine, because um, one of the things that we've kind of talked about on the show several times is this feels I don't better feels cheap. This feels so much more naturalistic of a work than I think any of the other works he's done to date. So like I think it's just um it's a big I'm trying to think of I just lost the words. I think it's a big testament to what you guys did and the workflow that you guys had, that it reads so well. Like at no point did I feel like, oh, these are some people in a studio in a black box with some tennis balls glued to them. Like,
Yeah.
um,
No,
but
I agree. I agree with you. I've looked at the stuff that's been put out. There's a massive amount of stuff on YouTube. I've looked at and I've looked at the ensemble work when we're all in the engine room
yeah,
the control room of the Magellan, and we have this we sort of have this closeness and this camaraderie, which I think, as you pointed out, comes across from having worked so closely together.
hmm
And
no, for sure.
when there was a break, we would sort of chat together, have a bit of a laugh, and eat together. And that it was a wonderful experience over a long period of time, nearly 3 years.
That's crazy. That's yeah, I guess I hadn't even considered, because I mean, obviously the first game came out November of 2019, so I think we all sort of assumed like, okay, it's been 5 or 6 years, but in game development land, it's like who knows what's happening in that time frame. So it's interesting to hear that that's how long the process was for you guys.
Well, I think what
Um
makes it so special, particularly for me, is that I've been in the industry. Next year will be 60 years I've been in the
wow.
industry.
Congratulations.
And at a time at a time when my family are saying, "When are you going to slow down, Dad?" To have this happen in it's sort of, to use a cliche, in the twilight of your career is just mind blowing. And to work with actors of the stature of Leia Sadu and Elle Fanning and
Yeah,
Norman
yeah.
Reedus and all of them, it was so wonderful. The I got to work with Leia. I actually met her on my second trip, and as you know, I got to work with her. But I was
Mhm.
supposed to work with Elle Fanning as well. But I
Mm.
caught COVID on the trip that I was supposed to
Oh
work with Elle Fanning.
no.
So for that particular trip, there was a stand-in. So for that one, I won't tell you which one. It's not my body, folks. But instead of being able to go to the studio, because what used to happen is, it was during COVID, so we
Yeah,
used to rock up the day before shooting. I'd come in from overseas, day before shooting. I'd go and be tested, saliva test for COVID.
yeah.
And the first couple of times I'd gone back to the hotel and the results would come up, and I'd be on my laptop and they'd come up negative, negative, great, off to work tomorrow. On this particular occasion, I think it was
Oh
the third
no.
or the fourth trip, got back to the hotel room, got it up on the thing, and I went, positive in big letters,
Oh,
bold letters coming out from the screen. And for the for the next 2 weeks, I was locked away in quarantine in a very nice hotel room overlooking a beach where
oh,
people
nice.
were playing volleyball on the beach and diving into a pool below my balcony, and I'm getting my food passed through the doorway in a paper
Yeah,
bag.
you've got your face pressed against the window. That's so funny. Um, yeah, I so the other thing I want to ask you is, considering your body of work, I would go out on a limb, pun intended, to say that this might be the weirdest thing that you've been in. Can you tell me your experience with the subject matter and all of the baggage that comes with that? Because this is a very surreal and strange game. So I'm curious as to what your first blush was.
It is, as I told you, the audition process, and then when I got the role, I was a singer for. Well, I had sort of my biggest success as a singer initially,
Yeah, yeah,
and so my kids grew up knowing me as this rock pop artist who was always sort of on telly,
yeah. And
and
wearing fantastic clothes, I have to add.
we used to go for drives in the car, and I'd sing along, and my kids would say, "Oh, shut up, Dad, you're ruining the song." Now, switch to when I got the part in Death Stranding 2, and I said to my kids, because I was totally ignorant about the gaming industry when I got the role, and I said to my grown men, they are now, I said, I rang them in the US and I said, guys, have you heard of a guy by the name of Hideo Kojima? And my younger son went, "You're kidding. You are kidding." I said, "Who is he?" He said, "Dad, he's the god of the gaming industry." So from then on, my kids are worshiping at my altar. So I've become legitimate. I mean, decades and decades of being a successful recording artist mean nothing. I
Don't
get
tell
one
me
million.
that. I have an 18-month-old daughter right now. I don't want to. I don't want to find out that I've got to work on something crazy 45 years from now for her to look at me the way I want her to look at me.
Yeah. So yeah, it has been surreal. It's a whole new world for me because I, I should qualify that by saying my youngest boy, who now lives and works in Salt Lake City, works in the gaming industry.
Oh, nice. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So it wasn't a totally thing, but they used to, as kids, they used to play a game called Under the Killing Moon,
Mm.
which was a game put out by I can't remember who it was, but Microsoft bought that whole
Hmm, hmm.
that whole franchise, and so they always were playing games. They were always playing Street Fighter, always
Yeah,
playing
yeah,
Street
yeah.
Fighter, and
It's a good one.
swearing like you wouldn't believe. Um, and so yeah, but you're right. It was surreal.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, all of the context for sure, but a man whose hand swims through an ocean of tar is also pretty surreal. So I guess what I'm curious about is like, what was your take on the script when they handed you your your uh your parts, like, for the day, like when they handed you your lines? Were you just like, what the hell am I talking about?
Well, that was one of the hardest parts of actually doing it. I would say the hardest part of doing it was learning the dialogue,
Got it.
because it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. All
Yeah, it's like a
these
different
scientific
language.
terminology, words I'd never heard before, places I'd never heard before. Karelian, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
on
yeah.
the first take I'd said, I'd said, how do you pronounce it? Uh, so, and that made it very difficult because you're used to a certain style of dialogue, which is sort of common speech.
Right,
And
right.
then when you get on the set and you've got to remember all these places from Mexico, US, and all this about this place and that place, and then the
Yeah,
dialogue, which really has no format like your normal drama dialogue in a television series or something.
for
So
sure.
that to me was the most challenging. I found that
Yeah.
it required a lot of concentration and really focusing when it came to walking on set and then having to do the different scenes. That was the biggest challenge for me.
No, I can totally believe that. It's interesting. It's not until you just put it that way that I didn't really quite consider how so many of the interactions in the game almost feel like characters monologuing at each other. Or it feels like we've been talking about this in our coverage. It seems like there's some sort of like emotional distance with the way characters are reacting to things that are happening. And so there's almost this weird like language between the language that you kind of have to get used to. I guess it's like watching like a very weird avant-garde indie film or something where you have to kind of get into the mode. But yeah, it's been interesting. I guess there are these like dramatic character moments though that I think kind of punch through the peculiarness. And
Well, you
so yeah, go ahead, sorry.
yeah, just on the subject of that dialogue, you have to feel for someone like Leia, whose second language, it's not her first language. English is
100%.
not her first language, and so what was difficult for me was doubly difficult for her.
Hmm.
She wasn't speaking in her native tongue; she was speaking a totally, it was like me going out and trying to learn Latin.
Yeah.
Um, but she did a marvelous job. She did an incredible job, and she was a delight to work with. But yeah, sorry, I cut in there. I didn't mean to.
No, 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 no. You're totally fine. I was just trying to ramble my way to asking, you have sons, and notably something happens to your character's son. Did you feel any sort of personal resonance with the sequence where Tarman's son gets swept away, or was it just too abstract to
No,
act in a
it's
big empty room?
absolutely. That was one of the first. That, if not that was the first day of shooting. I think for me,
Oh
and
wow!
it was very emotional. It was very emotional because, I channeled my own kids, my two
Right,
boys, and I that's what helped me because it's a very physical scene. It's a
100%.
scene where I'm literally trying to hang onto the boat and search for my son at the same time.
Hmm.
And at the end of it, yeah, it's interesting because the folks in Japan who were watching actually commented on how connected they felt with the scene and how it worked,
Oh,
how
nice.
for them it worked out really well.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a really good scene. I can't remember off the top of my head the name of the actor who plays your son, but was he in the room
No,
or it was just you?
yeah, it was just me. So it
Oh
was like
wow.
that. It was like that pretend process, that you go through, and
Yeah.
that's another layer of difference that you don't confront in normal acting.
Yeah, for sure. And again, especially somebody who's coming from like stage acting, I think it's interesting too because like Darren Jacobs and Tommy Earl Jenkins and all, it seems like a lot of you guys are coming from stage acting, and it's interesting because I mean I guess at the end of the day you are in a big black box. It is a form of stage acting, but it's
Yeah,
interesting what's been sort of stripped away.
I think being a stage actor helped with this type of game is because it was like being on a large stage because
Yeah.
and you were able to you had a little bit of latitude, not much, but you had a little bit of latitude at how you moved around the set, which you often don't get when you're doing one-to-one scenes in a film or television. So
Right.
it did have a sort of a bit of a theatrical feel about it, and that again is one of the things that I really liked.
That's interesting. Yeah, I guess I hadn't considered the fact that like the blocking might not be absolutely set in stone because they can change anything and everything afterwards. You know what I mean? Um, how many? I mean, I guess you guys all had cameras strapped to your heads. I was just going to ask if there was like a large sort of technical crew that was there as well, or if they gave you guys the space and everyone else kind of hung back. Like, I guess I've never been on that sort of a set, so I'm mostly just kind of curious as to how many hands were involved.
It was a very large crew, and a very, very professional crew. Very
Oh, gotcha.
very respectful crew, and they were a joy to work with, and they helped us so much. It was they were just so supportive and so helpful because I think they sympathised with the fact that this was a pretty challenging thing for all of us to do.
Yeah.
It's not every day that actors act in something and they're literally like this, covered in light from head to toe, with a helmet on, with a camera out the front of their face and a microphone out the front of their face. and you would forget that you had this protrusion out of the front of your face, and you would turn quickly and I'd hit the control panel. Clunk.
Oh.
You know, my earpiece would nearly change sides from my right ear to my left ear. So it was challenging, yeah. But the crew were amazing.
Yeah.
And so and
No,
so
I mean,
so were Mr. Kojima and his interpreter Aki. Aki.
mm,
I remember when I first met Mr. Kojima and Aki in Los Angeles, which was fantastic, and the fact that they were both, again, like the crew, they were both so open and responsive to suggestions. Mr. Kojima knows what he wants. He knows precisely what he wants,
yeah.
but he was always open to a suggestion. And I think I might have made a few suggestions on set, and you never felt that you were out of place or that you couldn't put forward an idea to him. And some of the time, he embraced your suggestion.
Nice. Yeah, it's interesting because that is definitely something that like he has been notorious not to do years and years and years ago. So I think in a lot of ways it seems like this project and the one before have been very like pivotal and like we're kind of affectionately referring to him as sort of old man kind of kind of sentimental Kojima at this point
He's
because it seems like
moderating with age, yeah.
yeah
I know the feeling. I've been through there. It's like
he's
male
mellowing.
menopause. But
Yeah.
the one thing I just wanted to say, because I know you were leading towards a question earlier, I just wanted to say this, is that I've had a look at a lot of the videos that are online, and what really strikes me about Death Stranding 2 is just how, in many aspects, how cinematic it is.
Yeah.
The grandeur of Sam standing on that cliff overlooking that amazing valley and mountains and things,
Yeah.
and some of it is visually stunning, and it's beginning to blur the demarcation between video games, I feel anyway personally, between video games and big budget films. Now we
Mhm.
see in something like Death Stranding 2 something that is leaning towards cinematic in its presentation. And then you have so many film companies and studios now producing games or making
Right.
films about games, and many of them not too successfully, I might say,
Yeah, exactly.
because they haven't, I don't think quite yet, they've captured the crossover between the two.
Yeah. It's interesting. You see almost a lot of I feel like I know this firsthand from like pitching and producing a show about video games several years back. But there's almost this weird reticence of like, we know how to do this, you don't, kind of like strange industry kind of nonsense that I think is holding a lot of projects back. I don't know. It's very interesting to see both from the inside and from the outside. Um,
Yeah, I think part of the problem is, and I'm only surmising here, and I'm no authority on this, but I was thinking about it the other day because of my involvement with Death Stranding 2. And that is, I think one of the problems with when they make a video game into a movie is that
mhm.
they feel as if they've got to make the movie like the video game, with a lot of action, a lot of shooting, and a lot of sort of karate, jiu-jitsu, and
Yeah,
all
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But what they're forgetting is that for a movie, you're an audience that's seated without interacting with anything. You're actually just watching on the screen. And after a time, all of that becomes overblown and it becomes just too much to absorb. Whereas if you're playing a game, you are involved. You are directly involved with that game. So you're inputting into what you're seeing. You can't do
Yeah.
that as a movie audience. You can't sit in a cinema and be actively involved. And that's where I think personally, I think that's where they're making a mistake.
Well, and I think you're onto something too, because if we look at the more successful versions, it's like The Last of Us on HBO or whatever is exploding. And like that has almost stripped out any of the sort of high intensity action. And it's all just characters and dialogue. And so, yeah, I mean, I think you might be onto something. I think they kind of lean probably too heavily into the gameplay. I mean, can you imagine a Street Fighter film I mean, there was a really bad one
Yeah.
years and years and years ago.
Yeah.
But just like, yeah, if we were to watch two people fight each other for an hour, I feel like we'd all get pretty bored.
Well, these
Um,
days you can go down to your local pub and see the same thing. So
that's true. Not during COVID, unfortunately, but definitely these days. Um, I I'm curious. I don't know. I guess I mostly just want to like get your opinion on this, Marty. Less of a pointed question and more of like a let's just talk about it. Part of what you're talking about with the sort of like high level of cinematography and fidelity and sort of games and movies blending, it came up recently. A listener to the show wrote in and was talking about. I'm not sure how much of the beginning you saw, but Sam loses his child, right? Like in the first few hours. We have a lot of new fathers listening to our show for some reason, and I think we're all being we're all being tortured right now. But one of them made the comment that had the fidelity and the sound design and the visuals not been as amazing or as well done, um, that he wouldn't have found himself just like crying looking at this child. And so uh, there's a part of me that's like, are we just so unimaginative that we need somebody to make it super polished for us to emotionally engage? Or do you think there's like something more to that? Is it, I don't know. Are we able to see something in the eyes that maybe we never got to see before? I know I'm just throwing out big pie in the sky questions now.
it's a very different world today in many aspects to what it was like when I got into the industry. It is really quite remarkable how, because of social media and so many things, things have changed quite
Mm,
drastically. What was acceptable back in the 60s and 70s is not acceptable today. I've had an instance in the last 24, 48 hours where I'm putting a show together based on an iconic album
mm.
that came out, and a whole series of them, where the album cover was a girl's butt in tight hot pants. This is on an album cover
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in
Were they a mean
about the
pair of
late
jeans?
70s and 80s, with the left side sort of ripped open. And where the left side has been ripped open are all the titles of the tracks
Oh, nice.
down her not her posterior, but down her thigh.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And this sold gazillions in the 70s, 80s, sold so many copies. And so I wanted to create this show called Ripper Rock based on
Mm.
these Ripper albums. And I got my graphic artist to design this. He designed this fantastic poster. And I had the venue where I wanted to put it on, come back to me a couple of days ago and said, our marketing department are concerned that if we send this out to our database, that a large proportion of our database might be turned off.
Mm.
And I said, well, what's the demographic of your database? And she said, well, they're probably 60 plus. And I said, and probably half of them have got that album,
Yeah.
because it did. It sold gazillions, and it was
Yeah,
popular.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
They kept that cover for about 5 or 6 years. But coming back to your question, I think the way we play emotion in the films today is very different to the way we played emotion going. As you said, today you've got so much going for you in terms of technology and what you can do and the soundtracks and all that wonderful thing. And I have to say, I love the soundtrack to Death Stranding 2.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Kid, I love it. Ethereal, beautiful. Um, and I think it's really in the eye of the beholder. I know as an actor, when you're asked to be emotional, it has to come from somewhere. I often used to laugh when you'd be on set and they'd say, "Now, can you cry here?" And and I'd go, "Well, yeah, if you give me about 10 minutes behind the curtain, I can probably
Yeah.
work up to it." But and I think it's just the way that today, using that example I just used, which is a little bit sort of out of left field, but it's an indication of how, because of so many things, social media, community attitudes today have changed so much. the young people today look at things very differently to the way we looked at things, very
Yeah, yeah.
differently. And I get it from my sons as well. You know, I know that we're on a different plane there.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really, put it this way. It's very difficult to spill tears when you got all that paraphernalia on. You know, because
That's true.
someone says, "Can you cry in this spot?" Yeah, can I just get that? Can I just move the microphone and the and the camera out of the way, and then I can actually get some emotion happening here? And then, can you give me 15 minutes in my caravan so I can build up to it? So yeah, look, I don't know. I think the jury's out.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Uh I as I was digging into your background, I found myself surprised, and maybe I just haven't gotten far enough. Maybe this is coming. I'm really surprised there's not a musical number with Tarman in it at some point in this game. I just
Yeah.
don't spoil it if it's coming.
No, no. The look, I mean, I'm really looking forward to the world tour with the orchestra and everything,
Yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
opens at the Sydney Opera House in late October.
Oh, very cool.
I think. Yeah,
That's awesome.
but no, well, I won't give too much away, but you don't want to hear Tarman sing. He's having enough trouble. He's having enough trouble controlling the boat. But
He'll give you a jazz hand, singular.
it's a funny thing. When I did the first King and I in London with the late great Yul Brynner, I played the young lover. We sang the songs "We Kiss in the Shadow" and "I Have Dreamed." And then when I got to do the show again 10 years ago, the Australian tour with Lou Diamond Phillips, I tried to convince the producers that I could still play the young lover, but they were having none of it. So I ended up playing the Kralahome, the Prime Minister. And that was a non-singing role, you know. And a lot of people would come up to me and say, "Hey, you know, you're a singer. Why don't you sing a song?" I said, "Well, the producers wouldn't let me play the young lover." There might be a bit of a word because I was in my 60s and Tup Tim was in her 20s. I said, "Mightn't have been a good look." Yeah.
Yeah. That's very funny. So my co-host, who again unfortunately could not be here tonight, she asked me to ask you. We know that just because you guys are Aussies does not mean that you might know each other, but there is an Aussie opera singer who also does voice work for Hideo Kojima games. Her name is Donna Burke. Are you familiar with her at all?
No, I'm not familiar with Donna Burke, unfortunately.
Okay. I
Because
just figured I'd ask.
as you said, it is a big industry here. The entertainment industry is a big industry here. At one time, just going back to my pop and rock roots, at one time we had the largest amount of live venues in the world in our cities.
That's
It was
crazy.
huge. It was huge. So yeah, we know a lot of people. We don't know everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Also, I know we're coming up on time, but I feel like I have to ask you this because it drew a big question mark from me. How did you end up managing boxers of all things?
Oh.
You've done everything. It's crazy. Your career is crazy.
I mean that's a movie in itself. Let me tell you, it's written 2 books. It's resulted in 2 books.
That's crazy.
I was approached by the English father of 3 boxing sons called the Waters brothers. I was actually producing corporate lunches for because of my entertainment background for a rugby league team in Sydney.
Oh, got it.
And I was approached by Cess Waters, who told me my 3 sons are going to be world champions. And he convinced me. And in actual fact, the youngest of them, Troy Waters, did fight for 3 world titles.
Oh, wow.
One of them, which I went to in Italy, which sadly he lost all 3. But what it ended up with, and the reason why I put my hands over my face was that they ended up. I got them a story on 60 Minutes, which made them into celebrities.
Oh, wow.
And about 2 years later, when it all started to fall apart, there was a story on. I remember waking up in the morning to this news bulletin saying that horse trainer Kevin Hall has been murdered on the Central Coast.
Oh, no.
And it turned out to be one of the Waters brothers. And I got caught up in that whole thing. And for a time there, myself and my wife were really concerned about our safety because it got
Oh, I'm sure.
very,
Yeah.
very dark, very, very dark. And it resulted in court cases and murder trials and
Good
a
Lord.
60-minute story that absolutely ripped the facade off what it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like. It's the difference. Seth Waters, the trainer, the father. There's a fine line between madness and brilliance.
Yeah.
He,
Yeah.
he trod that far line. His sons would never have got to as far as they had without his drive and his ambition. But there
Oh,
was
I'm
the
sure.
dark side to him as well. Very dark.
That's crazy. Well, apologies. I did not expect the abrupt
That's it.
left turn.
You're not the first, and when it's brought up, that's why I nearly have a heart
No, no,
attack.
no. I totally get it.
Yeah,
Good Lord.
it was a very tough period for us. Yeah,
Well, I'm glad that you are through that because
yeah.
that sounds like a literal nightmare. Um, you mentioned Italy earlier, so I do have to say this anecdote. So my mother is 100% Sicilian. She met my father, who was in the U.S. Air Force. So my whole mother's side of the family is all still in Sicily.
Well, you'd be
When
pleased
I
to hear I'm married to a Napolitana.
Nice. My sister was born in Naples,
Yeah.
so that's amazing. So funny enough, I was talking about this upcoming interview because my parents sometimes ask what I'm working on, and my mom asked if you were the one who had the songs about blue jeans, and she had legitimately. I mean, she grew up in Italy from like 63 to 87 ish. But she was familiar with your work and said that she liked your songs. And that's when
I
I
I
took a
I am
deeper look.
I am impressed. I mean, I had two number one hit records. The first was a song called Denim and Lace,
It's
and
a
the
good one.
second was a song called A Mean Pair of Jeans.
That's my
Uh,
favorite of the two.
People used to say that I had a fetish for denim.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, what's the fascination?
It's just the way it turned out. The first hit, "Denim and Lace," was written by two guys. It actually came to me as a country song. It was
Oh, interesting.
I got this demo, which was a country song. The demo was terrible, worst demo I've ever heard. And I said, I'll record it under one condition. I turn it into a rock song, which I went home, created a riff, gave it a chunky rock feel. Because let me tell you that I'd already knocked back two songs previously. One
Oh
of them,
wow.
one of them was A Little Ray of Sunshine, which became a huge hit for an Aussie guy. The second song I knocked back was by a little-known Swedish group who just won song uh, uh, Eurovision called Waterloo. And the band was
Okay.
ABBA, and I knocked
Nice.
that song back.
That's
I
awesome.
had the chance to record it. And so when Denim
That's
and Lace
that's
came
always
along,
such a crazy thing to see somebody else just
when Denim and Lace came along, as bad as that demo was, I wasn't knocking it back.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and good on you.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you, Mum. She's spot on.
No, it's great. I've really enjoyed going back and listening to your stuff. I'm definitely gonna have to look for that country record. But yeah, Marty, thank you so much for your time. On behalf of all of our listeners, seriously, I think your performance as Tarman has really like hit for quite a lot of people. We've all been talking about your performance and specifically the scene on the boat. As we get further, I'm sure there will be more things to talk about. But yeah, I really appreciate you taking your time. Di was absolutely wonderful to work with. Just to get your time and I'm totally blanking on her name. Allison Buck was also
Yeah.
great at
Yeah.
Bohemia. She was great.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
thank you very much. And it's a whole new world for me, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Awesome. Is there anything coming up that we can maybe promote to the listeners? Do you have any shows or albums or books or anything?
Um, Not. I'm doing an independent movie towards the end of the year called The Storm Queen, which
Hmm,
is it's interesting because it's an LGBTQ futuristic Star Wars type of thing where the two heroines are the main characters, the Storm Queen
very cool.
and this woman that she befriends on her journey.
Nice. No, that's awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely have to keep an eye out for that. And then obviously once this episode is out, we'll be sure to tag on all the socials and stuff like that. So
Please
um,
do.
awesome. Yeah, Marty, thank you so much for your time and yeah, much appreciated.
Thank you.
Just a box.